The city was the capital of Cavite province from the latter's establishment in 1614 until 1954, when it was transferred to the newly created city of Trece Martires, near the center of the province. It started as the small port town of Cavite Puerto that prospered during the early Spanish colonial period, when it became the main seaport of Manila, hosting the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade and the port used for other heavy and larger sea-bound ships. Thereafter, San Roque and La Caridad, two former independent towns of Cavite province, were later added to form one municipality. The present larger Cavite city now includes the communities of San Antonio, includes Caniaco and Sangley Point, the southern districts of Santa Cruz and Dalahican, and other outlying islands of the province, including the historic Corregidor Island. Ermita de Porta Vaga. A legend narrates that during the Spanish colonial era, at the peak of Cavite's economic prosperity because of the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade, a small detachment of the Spanish Guardia Civil was stationed at the Garita, located at Porta Vaga of Cavite Puerto. One stormy night, a Spanish sentinel was at his post when he saw a bright, shifting light. A dazzling apparition rose from the currents of Caniaco Bay and startling the sentry, who surmised that the light came from pirates out to raid the port. The frightened sentinel seized the bright light and asked to be halted, but the beautiful and gentle voice replied to the sentinel, saying, "Soldadito, porque el alto me das en noche tan fría? Dame paso. No conoces a María." The awestruck and confused sentinel humbly repented. The following morning, the fishermen and workers at the Cavite Royal Arsenal passed through the Porta Vaga and found a framed image of the Virgin on the beach along Caniaco Bay, near the place of her apparition the night before. They brought the painting to the parish priest, who temporarily installed it in the parish church. Eventually, the Ermita de Porta Vaga, or Chapel of Vaga Gate, was built along the port's walls and for 3 centuries served as the shrine of Icon.
The other places or monument that we can visit in Cavite City is the Julian or Felipe monument. This monument symbolizes for a great son of Cavite, no other than the composer of the Philippine National Anthem, Professor Julian Felipe. He composed the Philippine National Anthem, formerly known as Marcha Nacional Filipina, now known as Lupang Hinirang. He was born specifically in Cavite City, Cavite. He was also involved in the revolution. He fought with fellow Caviteños against the Spaniards. Cavite City Library Museum is located at Arbasa Street, San Roque, Cavite City. It was led by the City Mayor Timoteo O. Encarnacion Jr. It was approved on November 4, 1994. This museum provides a glimpse of Cavite's history up to the American occupation. Cavite City Library Museum as repository of books, photographs, relics, and memorabilia which are collected and preserved. Also, it serves as a learning and information center for residents of Cavite City and its neighboring towns. People come to read and see the exhibits in the museum.
Sangley Point previously used as a military base by American and Japanese troops. It is now occupied by the Philippines Navy for ship repairs and dry docking. Sangley Point in Cavite was the site of the battle for Manila Bay during the Spanish-American War, which was a very important event in Philippine history that marked the end of centuries of Spanish rule in the country. It is also a communication facility and hospital of United States Navy. Sangley Point Airport was inaugurated on February 15, 2020 by President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, which is planned in November 2019 to conduct a dry run operation. And also, this is the fourth commercial airport serving the Greater Manila area.
Located at the entrance to Manila Bay, Isla ng Corregidor was identified by the Spaniards as a strategic defense location when they arrived in the 16th century. They named it Island of the Corrector, since this was the place where all ships entering Manila would stop for inspection. Since then, the fortress island has been the site of many battles, from the Spanish-American War to the period of American colonialism. The oldest landmark on the island is the lighthouse, dated 1853. But much of this lush, tropical island is dominated by ruins that reflect the intense fighting that took place in World War II. In addition to defense and battery buildings, there are shops, a movie theater, and a swimming pool, all from the soldiers stationed here many years ago. During the Japanese invasion of the Philippines in 1941, Corregidor was the temporary headquarters of the Philippine government. American and Philippine troops fought desperately to defend the island using tunnels dug into the rock as storage for ammunition and hospitals, but without reinforcements, the troops were beaten badly. Corregidor was surrendered to the Japanese by spring of 1942. In 1945, the tide of war turned against the Japanese, and during months of aerial and naval bombardment in the tunnels on the island, they surrendered to American and Philippine forces in February that year. Even on a bright, sunny day, the place is heavy with memories of what happened here. The buildings and fortifications have been left with untouched, which would give the impression that the fighting ended just yesterday, if it weren't for the greenery that has grown over in the decades since their abandonment. Tour guides on the island report they are still finding detritus from the battles of World War II. They occasionally come across objects in the jungle undergrowth dating back to even earlier, when Philippines and American families were stationed on the island at the turn of the 20th century. The expansive tunnels below ground are no doubt the eeriest part of the island. These dark corridors are allegedly haunted by Japanese soldiers who took their own lives before defeat. But whether or not you believe that legend, the tunnels are disturbing for the sheer amount of violence that occurred there. The island is now a designated national monument and war memorial. The ruins have been maintained in memory of the American, Philippine, and Japanese soldiers who fought and died here.
Church Belfry, located in Magallanes Street in Cavite City in the province of Cavite. The Santa Monica Church Belfry is the sole surviving part of one of the numerous Spanish-era churches in the Cavite City. Santa Monica Church, which was under the Recoletos, was built sometime in the early years of the 17th century. It was a time when the port city was at the peak
of its economic and religious success. As a matter of fact, there were as many as 8 different churches from different religions under in the city. The city would have great place to go on a pilgrimage or visita iglesia during an Holy Week because of the number of churches and their nearly to each other. However, the Second World War changed that. Sadly, one of the 8 churches remained intact after the said war. After the cleanup, only the Belfry of Santa Monica Church and 2 bastions of Fort San Felipe remain.